What's up, y'all? This is Josh coming at you again from Scratch DJ Academy here in New York City. And today we'll be using analog inside Ableton to show you how to make that TR-808 sound. So what we got here is we have our analog synth on the bottom here, and as you can see, it's just inside the instrument patch right here on the left-hand side. So if we click on that, we can load analog down into our session here. I also have a compressor on here that just to amplify the sound a little bit, make it sound a little bit more uniform. All right. So with analog's a really cool synth. It's real versatile and can be used in a lot of sense. But today we're going to concentrate primarily on the Roland TR-808 sound, or the bass sound that was real popular and is popular in hip hop and bass music today. So first thing we got here is we're going to concentrate on our Oscillator 1, or the first sound. All right. So when you load it in, the default patch it loads into is with our sawtooth wave here, but we're actually going to concentrate on the sine wave. So you just click the drop down box here, tap on the sine wave, and it loads up. All right. Next thing we want to do is we're going to go over to our octave, and we're going to lower it down 2 steps to make it a little bit more deep and rumbly. All right. Then what we want to click on our oscillator here, and we're going to highlight the window. And what this does, this brings up the pitch envelope. And for the pitch envelope, what we want to do is we want to move it up to about 85%. And then we want to take our time and we're going to move that over here to about 10%. All right. Now, if you were to play the sound, you automatically start to hear the 808 sound. Right? Sounds like a kick drum. So the cool thing about that is you could use it as a kick. We could play around with that, make a kick out of the analog, or obviously for this we want it to ring out a little bit more. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go over to our filter here. And in the filter window, we want to do a couple things. We want to change our filter here to a low pass -12 dB change there. And we're going to lower the frequency down to about 1K, somewhere around there. And we're going to boost our resonance, or our cue point, to about 40%. Okay? So if we were to play that, it's just a little bit harder, right? The next thing we want to do is we're going to come over to our amp. So in the amp, the amplifier, what that does, that determines how the sound, how you hear it, how you perceive it. It's also where a lot of the envelopes, and we're going to look at just one of the envelopes on here. We're going to concentrate on the release. So I'm going to go over to the release, and I'm going to raise this up to about 4 seconds. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can play around with that. That's going to determine how long the 808 sound rings out. So if we play it now, we get this sound. Right? Sounds just like your typical 808. All right? But it still needs a little bit something else. So that's when we're going to go to Oscillator 2. So we're going to come down here, and we're going to turn on our Oscillator 2. Now you want to make sure that the Oscillator 2 is standing alone by itself. You can do that right under here by scrolling up or down to the F2. And that means it's going to be only the envelope and the filter are going to affect Oscillator 2. After we have that, we're going to keep this on our sawtooth wave, which is what it defaults to. And we're going to lower that down 2 octaves as well. Actually, before we do that, we have to turn on our amplifier here so we hear the sound. But if we play it, we get a little raspiness in there, right? Now, obviously, we don't really want that electro-sounding type sound, so that's where we're going to go. We're going to add in our filter 2 here. And for our filter 2, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to keep it on a low pass, -12 dB, and we're going to lower this down a little bit lower to about 800, somewhere in that range. And it's not exact, but that's okay. So now if we play it, we have a little bit of bite in there, a little bit more girth to the actual sound, so it sounds a little bit thicker, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to change the attack. And we're just going to roll it up here a little bit. So we get the initial sound from Oscillator 1. We have that hard kick that you can feel, and then something that comes in a little bit afterwards. Right? So after we do that, I'm actually going to adjust it just a little bit more here, and I'm going to go ahead and put down the frequency a little bit more so it's not quite as bright. All right? So after we get to that point, We want to make sure that the Oscillator 2 is ringing out just as much as Oscillator 1, so we're going to click on our Amp 2, and we're going to match the release point of our Oscillator 1 with Oscillator 2. Alright, so as you can see, we have 4.8 seconds, or 4.08 seconds. We're going to do the same here as well. Alright, so now if we play these out, now the only thing you see there is, right now we have all these different sounds kind of rumbling together and it sounds real cluttered. So what we want to do is we want to turn our analog synth into a monophonic synth, or only play one sound at a time. So we're going to go right here and we're going to click on where the volume's at, and we're going to change our voices to mono. And what that does is that means every time we strike a key, only one sound is going to play. So if we strike one key, as you can see, and then we hit another one, it shuts off the other sound. All right, this is Josh, one half of Statik Link at New York Scratch Academy, and this has been how you create an 808 with analog inside Ableton.